On the Senate floor Thursday, Senator John Cornyn labeled economic policies of Democratic lawmakers as, quote, the new socialism. Senator Dick Durbin took issue with that characterization, especially as it pertains to student loans. The Illinois Democrat called Biden's wide-scale loan forgiveness plan, quote, not unreasonable, and added, quote, where in the heck was this comment about socialism when we were giving out PPP loans all across America by the thousands? And it turns out, some of the harshest Republican critics of student loan forgiveness took out PPP loans. Biden's plan gives $10,000 in relief for all borrowers with an annual income below $125,000 and $20,000 in relief for those who qualified for federal Pell Grants.
Socialism. This is all about socialism. I listened very carefully to my friend from Texas, and he is my friend. We work together on many things. And he believes the downfall of America is the advent of socialism. Well, I'm not sure what that label means to him, but I want to take a look at some of the areas that he made a comment on. He thinks it's socialist for us to expand the coverage of the Affordable Care Act. Mr. President, we're down to 8% of Americans without health insurance. 8%. The goal is 0. We may never reach it. We have dramatically decreased the number of Americans without health insurance. Have you ever lived in a situation where you didn't have health insurance? Were you a new father with a baby with a health problem and no health insurance? I've been there. You don't want to go to that place. We want to give everybody the peace of mind that they have quality health care available to them. Is that socialism? Is that the government making the decision that you're going to have health insurance? I don't think so. Right-thinking people across this country, regardless of political stripe, believe that health insurance is critical for a happy and a healthy family. And he used the term, he said, Medicare is a socialist objective. Huh. Try that one on for size in any state. Run your campaign on getting rid of Medicare and see how it works. I can tell you what the result will be. Medicare in the last 60 years has liberated senior citizens in America so they can live longer and live independently and have quality care through the later years of their life. Socialism, government knows better. It's a program which people value, just like Social Security. And I hope that people won't brand that as socialism. Many did when it was created. These programs that families count on, real families, these are programs that are not socialist. They're as American as can be. And the student loan program, I support what President Biden did. I might have done it a little differently. But the fact that he is tagging that that student loan forgiveness to the wealth of the individual and family is the right thing to do. $10,000 student loans forgiven for those with family income or individual income below $125,000 a year. That's not unreasonable. That means that middle class and lower kids are going to have $10,000 in their student loan forgiven. And if they happen to be on Pell Grants, which means they really were low-income families when they went to school, they get an additional $10,000. Oh, I hear all this lamenting and whining and crying of socialism in this. Where in the heck was this comment about socialism when we were giving out PPP loans all across America by the thousands? And it turns out some of the harshest Republican critics of student loan forgiveness took out PPP loans. You know what that meant? They were forgiven. They didn't have to pay them back. It was okay when they were receiving the money, these conservative Republicans, but the idea of some student burdened with student loans having loan forgiveness is socialism, not where I'm standing. And I also want to say something about fiscal responsibility. You know, after the reconciliation bill, after the Inflation Reduction Act, how much we will reduce the deficit this year? $1.7 trillion. How did we achieve this? Well, we achieved it by saying we're going to establish a minimum tax for certain corporations. Which ones? Corporations that showed an average of $1 billion a year in net profit. Average $1 billion net profit a year over a 3-year period of time will finally have to pay some federal income tax. Is that too much to ask? Is that socialism? No, it's fairness. In terms of the EV socialism, this is one where senators ought to take care. When they give speeches on the floor about electric vehicles and electrification, they are basically betting that the future is going to be a lot different than I see it. Why do we have so many electric vehicles? Well, it must be a federal mandate. No, it wasn't. It was a decision by the private sector to build electrical vehicles and make that the future of transportation in America. Take a look at Ford Motor Company. We had one of the Ford family come and tell us a story. They made a decision that electric vehicles were part of their future, a big part of their future. And they made a marketing move that I thought was genius. What were the first two vehicles they electrified and advertised? The Ford F-150 Lightning, the most popular pickup truck in America. A lot of white males drive those around. I'm sure the presiding officer knows a couple. I drive one myself. And they're going to electrify that vehicle, and they can't produce them fast enough to meet the demand. So the people who many Republicans feel are their natural allies on this subject are waiting in line to buy a Lightning, an F-150. And what was the other car that they were going to electrify? A Mustang. Well, I just want to tell you, certain age groups still dream about Mustangs. And I can remember in 1964 when they put them on the market for the first time. They're going to electrify them, and these cars are wildly popular. They can't build them fast enough. So the Republicans are betting that this is just a fad and it's going to go away. They are dead wrong on this. The private sector production of automobiles is moving toward electric vehicles in a big way, and it's going to happen. And I'd say to Republicans who believe this is pure socialism to have electric vehicles in our future, get out of the way, because those electric vehicles are going to run all over you in no time at all. Also, this idea of 87,000 IRS agents. This was invented by one senator who came to the floor and made his calculation. It's like death squads. They pick up a phrase and they say, this is the reality, 87,000 IRS agents. That isn't even close to the truth. What we know is this: the vast majority of Americans and American families pay their taxes legally on time, and they should be respected for doing that. What we're looking for are people who don't do that, either don't pay their taxes or don't pay what they owe. And those people are not accepting their fair share of responsibility for this nation's future. The IRS has been starved in the past of basic things, computerization, for example, and agents to do audits. But the president's made it clear that his target is never going to be working families. His target is those who are defying the law and defying the system of taxation. He believes they should pay their fair share, and I couldn't agree with him more. In terms of this idea that the socialist mantra is we know better, government knows better, it's interesting when it comes to personal liberty and freedom, and when you get in another area like reproductive freedom for women, exactly the opposite position is being taken by many people on the other side of the aisle. Here's the point I want to make. We considered the reconciliation bill just a few weeks ago. We had 41 straight roll calls. I know because I was on the floor for every one of them. And at the end of the day, we passed the reconciliation bill, Inflation Reduction Act. And what has happened since? Well, if you want to call it socialism, let me tell you what our socialist moves have done so far. Tomorrow, President Joseph Biden is going to New Albany, Ohio, to join the CEO of Intel in breaking ground on a new multi-billion-dollar semiconductor plant. It's one of the largest investments of its kind in American history, and it's going to create thousands of good-paying jobs, construction workers and engineers. Over the next decade, Intel plans to transform New Albany into one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing sites in the world. That's a big shift from the days when we shipped microchip production overseas to Asia. Socialism? Is this Joe Biden's brand of socialism? To open up a plant that finally is going to make computer chips, which are absolutely essential for the growth of our economy? And this investment in America's future was made possible by the CHIPS and Science Act. And I want to give credit where it's due. There were some Republicans who stepped forward and joined us in that effort. I wish there would have been more. I wish they all would have been with us on this effort. We believed, and the president backed us up, that if we were going to make this investment in semiconductor chips for our future, America was going to be there. I don't think that was inspired by socialism. That was inspired by common sense. Yesterday, the New York Times reported that in the weeks since the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law, and that's the one with 41 roll calls, companies throughout the country have unveiled, quote, a series of big-ticket projects to kickstart our clean energy future. Socialism? a future that will be made in America by American workers. I'd like to remind everyone that we passed that law without a single Republican vote. Not one Republican senator would join us in this effort. Well, what's happened in the 4 weeks since we passed it? Well, Toyota announced it's going to invest billions of dollars in manufacturing batteries for those electric and hybrid vehicles here in America. That's happened since we passed the bill. One solar company, named First Solar, announced another $1 billion investment to build a new facility in the Southeast. Socialism? Honda, LG, Samsung, all of them announced billions of dollars in investments to make components for electric vehicles right here in America. In West Virginia, one company plans to build a nearly 500,000 square foot electric battery factory. And who's going to be working in it? Well, they're targeting laid off coal miners. They want to put them to work first. Socialism? Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, these jobs aren't going overseas anymore. They're staying right here in America. New manufacturing projects are lighting up across the country like a constellation of hope, marking a new era of renewal and renaissance for American families. And I'm glad to say a big piece of it's taken place in the Midwest. Earlier this week in my home state of Illinois, the company TCCI announced it's going to invest millions of dollars into retooling its facility in Decatur, Illinois, to make compressors for, hold on to your socialist hat, electric vehicles. Here they come again. And our governor, Pritzker, announced the state will work alongside Richland Community College to establish a climate center for innovation and research, an innovation hub. Socialism? This is a chance for the Decatur community to play its part in electric vehicle revolution. And most importantly, once again, these investments are going to create good-paying jobs right here in America. Cities like Decatur, this is a lifeline. It wasn't that long ago the city was struggling with population decline. Now it's a new story. Under President Biden and a Democratic Congress, we're leaving no town behind. We're investing in the future of every community, from Chicago to Decatur. And in doing so, we're honoring America's history as a land of opportunity. There's a statue in downtown Decatur, Mr. President. It's the site where it's said that a 21-year-old barefoot Abraham Lincoln delivered his very first political speech, supporting the Whig platform. Just 2 years after that speech, Lincoln announced his first campaign for public office in my home county of Sangamon. He ran for the legislature. So as we celebrate the new funding for jobs and development coming to cities like Decatur, I find it interesting that one of the first policies Lincoln supported was known as internal improvements. He announced in his first run for office, time and experience have verified to a demonstration the public utility of internal improvements. The poorest and most thinly populated countries would be greatly benefited by the opening of good roads and in the clearing of navigable streams within their limits, and that no person will deny. The challenges we face in America today are more sophisticated, but we also passed an infrastructure bill, the largest in the history of the United States. Under the previous president, Donald Trump, he promised every week was going to be Infrastructure Week. Unfortunately, his response was so weak, there was never an Infrastructure Week, never during his presidency, and that's a fact. President Biden turned that around, and we passed an infrastructure bill that's putting America back to work, as it should. It's about time. For decades, Republicans have prayed to the altar of trickle-down economics. They call every initiative that we have on the Democratic side socialism. Social Security, socialism. Medicare, socialism. This idea of leading into the electric vehicle revolution, socialism. The government knows best. Well, I'll tell you they're wrong. What we see is leadership, and leadership that is long overdue. We can't leave working families behind in this country. 4 decades of cutting taxes for the rich on some wild theory this is somehow going to lift all boats just turned out to be false. I'll tell you this, roads and bridges crumbling beneath our feet, generations of good-paying jobs going overseas, the world's wealthiest trying to save a few bucks, and skyrocketing economic inequality is not American. Fixing it is not socialism, it's just fairness. The last president spent 4 years declaring Infrastructure Week, had nothing to show for it. In less than 2 years, President Biden and the Democrats have delivered on their promise of rebuilding America and putting American workers back to work. We've had the largest growth, and job creation ever in the history of the United States in the last year and a half under President Biden. And 660,000 of those jobs are manufacturing jobs, real jobs with a good paycheck. We're investing in the industries of the future. More important, we're investing in American families. The policies we've enacted during this Congress are going to help move America forward. Together, they represent a new vision for America's future. Roads and bridges, microchips, wind turbines, deep research into advanced technologies like quantum computing. What does it mean for American people? Take a look at the auto industry. Today, the industry, which Barack Obama as president saved despite Republican opposition, is an industry which the major manufacturers are betting big on the electric future. Members of the Republican Senate caucus may not see electric vehicles in the future, but they've closed their eyes if they're in that position. With the infrastructure package, we're going to create good jobs, union jobs, fixing and building our roads, installing charging stations all across America. With the CHIPS and Science Act, we're shoring up domestic supply of semiconductors so we can assemble next-generation electric vehicles in American factories. And that CHIPS bill also authorized billions of dollars in funding for scientific research, laboratories like Argonne and Fermi. This research has the potential to unlock new discoveries in battery technology. Now, with the Inflation Reduction Act, we're making life more affordable for working families. That's not just to bring down costs on prescription drugs and energy bills. It will help lower the cost of American-made electric vehicles so more families can buy one. This is the Democratic platform in action, building products and components we depend on here at home, pioneering technology breakthroughs to change the world, and leveling the economy so that every family has a fighting chance. Thanks to the policies we've passed so far under the Biden administration, we are rolling. And I do want to tell you this for the record, Mr. President. On my way to catch the plane at the airport in St. Louis earlier this week, I saw gasoline for sale at $3.46 a gallon. That's still high, but it's a heck of a lot better than the $5 plus we were paying just a few weeks ago. Is that socialism? I think it's a government at work, and this president has done everything he can to bring down the cost of living that families face. It is still a challenge. We haven't conquered it, but we're moving in the right direction, and this economy is moving in the right direction. I wish we could have had some Republican support for that effort. I yield the floor.